Hello, welcome to the Analyst Inside Cricket with me, Simon Hughes in London.
And me, Simon Mann, not in London. I still haven't made it back to London. Yoz, I will do eventually, but I'm on my post-Ashes holiday still, and I suspect it's much warmer here where I am in East Asia, Southeast Asia, than it is with you in London.
You're very lucky. I'm very jealous. The weather in London is disgusting, and the weather where you are, I'm sure, is beautiful. Have you got over it? I mean, is it actually the best way to recover from the Ashes is to go to a desert island or similar?
Absolutely. I would thoroughly recommend it, yours. I don't know why you didn't do it yourself. It's absolutely the best way. You completely forget about what happened in Australia almost immediately and focus on kind of enjoying a holiday and not being back in the bleak coldness of January, which is, I think, always the most depressing month. I think you've just had Blue Monday, haven't you, back in the UK? Well, it wasn't depressing where I was.
No, I can imagine. Yours was Yellow Monday with sun and sand and bit of blue sea, I suppose.
Having said that, Yoz, I have tweaked a hamstring running on the beach and also pulled a calf muscle and also fell off a moped and injured my ribs. I feel as though I've been hit by a full toss from Wayne Daniel or something like that, in the ribs. But, don't have too much sympathy for me.
No, well, it sounds like you're having the kind of break that England did in Noosa, with lots of R&R and things going slightly wrong. And actually, I mean, we should talk about that a bit in due course. I mean, obviously, today we're going to just reflect on England's first ODI of this part of the winter anyway, leading into the T20 World Cup, a 50-over tournament in Sri Lanka, 3 matches. They've just lost the first one. At least, I suppose, the one compensation is that they actually batted almost 50 overs. And the last 3 games they've played in this format, they've only lasted about 36 overs. So at least they batted the overs. That's one positive.
Yeah, I felt like it was watching, and I have watched the game. I felt like it was watching a game I've seen before when England play in the subcontinent. They almost flatter the deceive. You think that they're going to win the game, and actually they were in a very good position to do so when Joe Root and Ben Duckett were going well. What were they? 129 for 1 in the 28th over, and then Duckett was out, Root was out, and it all crumbled pretty quickly, and it just left the lower order with too much to do. And they've got some good hitters down the order. Rehan Ahmed plays some strong shots, and Overton plays some strong shots as well. Perhaps they paid for those 23 runs off the last over that Overton conceded. I mean, you look at the pitch and the conditions. All the pace bowlers in the game went around the park a bit, didn't they? For England and for Sri Lanka. I just wonder whether, we've talked about this before on this podcast. Was it a 5/6 spinner pitch? Just play all spinners and don't bother with your pace bowlers. I mean, you would probably say, oh, you need a bit of variation here and there. I mean, Sam Curran was notionally a pace bowler, but he was taking pace off, wasn't he? Bowling his moon balls, bowling slower balls, that sort of thing. And the bowlers who bowl with a bit of pace on, generally, the batters got after them. It was actually the spinners throughout the game who were so much harder to hit. But, I mean, do England have 5 frontline spinners to play in a one-day international? I mean, it was quite a curious-looking team, wasn't it? I said to you yesterday, this is an odd-looking England team, especially the bowling lineup. I say it's an odd England attack, and you said, well, it's not so much an attack as a defence, really.
Yeah, and you're right to point out, actually, have England got 5 quality spinners to play in the short format? I think, this match is crying out, or, is showing that England are crying out for a new Adil Rashid, or someone who can support Adil Rashid. I see, Moeen Ali is still playing. He's re-signed for the 100, hasn't he, for next season, having sort of more or less retired. And it's interesting, isn't it, that there isn't anyone else that's really put their hand up and said, I am the spinner to support Adil Rashid. I thought Liam Dawson did okay today. Actually, all this sort of focus all the time on where are the next England spinners, which is usually an argument or a desire for Test cricket. And actually, especially at this time of year when there are quite a lot of one-day matches in the subcontinent, and indeed the T20 World Cup is in the subcontinent, it's actually spin you need for the shorter formats as much as Test cricket. I'm not sure there is enough available. Funnily enough, that England under-19 side, which looks quite an impressive side, playing in the under-19 World Cup, they have, again, lots of very good seam bowlers. When people worry about the future of England faster bowling, I don't think they need to, because there's a lot of real good talent in that under-19 side from the seam department, but not so much for the spin. And you could have played 6 spinners today and not bowled a seamer in Sri Lanka. I sometimes think you just need that seam option, just that pace option, even just for a couple of overs with a new ball. And the other thing that they've done differently, or that is now different about ODIs, which I think is a good move, is that firstly, they now only have 1 ball from 34 overs. So out of the 2 balls used either end at the 34 over mark, they choose whichever one they want to prefer to bowl with from there on, and use the 1 ball. And that can gradually get scuffed up and perhaps reverse swing later on. And in fact, it did a little bit for the Sri Lankan seamers. And also, they've painted a new line down the leg side to give bowlers a bit more leeway on the leg side, so that it's not an automatic wide when the ball is 2 inches down the leg side. And that just gives, again, seamers and spinners a little bit more flexibility. And perhaps that's just one reason why these scores that were monumental in 50-over cricket perhaps 5 years ago are sort of slowly coming down a bit.
I thought perhaps, the reason today I think that the scores were relatively modest was because of the pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, it spun a lot, didn't it? It's not easy. And England have traditionally struggled.
It was sort of sticking in the pitch as well. It wasn't an easy pitch, except after the new ball.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why England struggled, because they're not that adept, are they, at working the ball around it on a turning surface. I thought Joe Root played really well again. When he was out, I thought that's a big blow to England's chances, and it was such a marginal call as well, because Sri Lanka weren't going to review it. It was one that was just pitched on, straightened enough, and was hitting as it turned out, and just inside the line as well. It was so close to pitching outside the line of leg stump. It was initially turned down. Sri Lanka reviewed it. I mean, that's a great fillip when you do that, especially when you get a batter of Joe Root's quality out. When they did get him out, then it was big problems for England. Harry Brook coming down the pitch, stumped by one that spun quite appreciably down the leg side. It's amazing actually how quickly the game turned. Normally you were saying we're in control of that match. I gave you the stat just now. 129 for 1 they were in the 28th over, chasing 272 to win the game. And you think, if you were playing that game in England, you'd think, yeah, no trouble at all. England will comfortably win that match. But in the subcontinent, on pitches where the ball is spinning, where you know the opposition's game plan is just based around spin and squeezing, you're getting a couple of wickets and then really going for it. You just thought that, that's going to be too tricky once they started losing wickets. And Josh Buttler seemed to come in a bit. He couldn't get going, and the game was over by the time he tried to take it on. So he was out bowled, and there was a lusty hitting at the end. Actually, England got a bit closer than I thought they probably were going to. Sort of the game ended a bit earlier than it actually did, if you sort of mean, as a contest. They kept it going, and 19 runs. You think it's quite a close game, and I suppose it could have been much closer. But Sri Lanka were always likely to win the game from about 35 overs out. Something like that. So it's another defeat for England in white ball cricket, and their record, since the last World Cup, and they didn't play very well in the World Cup in the subcontinent then in India, is lost 19 and won 8. I mean, they are really a low ebb in one day cricket.
Yeah, and it's worrying, and it needs to be worrying, because the top 9 teams in the world qualify for the Cricket World Cup in 2027, the next World Cup, the 50-over World Cup. One of those teams automatically qualify. That's South Africa, because, of course, they're the hosts. It means that the top 8 have to qualify for the tournament in the ICC rankings, and England are currently 8th. So, they can't afford to slide any further down. I mean, they probably will be okay, but, more defeats like this. Just analysing their batting a little bit more, actually. They plumped for Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett to open on the back of I don't really know what, to be honest. And, Duckett, fair enough. He's an excellent player. He's got a good record in one-day cricket. Crawley has a negligible record in one-day cricket. And actually, just looking at his dismissal today, I think he's the wrong choice. I might have to eat my words here. I think he's the wrong choice for England in white ball cricket, especially in the subcontinent, because the ball doesn't really come onto the bat. And I'm just going to play you a few balls that he tried to hit today. If you're watching this on video, you can see them. He's trying to go on the up at the ball, which is pitched on a length a little bit wide, and 1 or 2 nipping back, 1 or 2 moving away. And he just looks, completely, not clueless quite. That's a bit unfair, but he looks inept, really. And he's trying to play the same shot without really moving his feet, driving it on the up, reaching out to the ball, which isn't really arriving. Couple beat the inside edge, and then one eventually takes the outside edge, and he's caught behind, and he walks off almost fatalistic. I knew I was going to, I mean, I'm sure he didn't know he was going to fail, but it looked like that. It looked like he just almost gave up. It was a poor innings. And, then you compare someone like Brook comes in soon after, playing the ball a bit later, playing it under his nose. So, that was off to a bad start. Root and Duckett did well and played nicely and adapted their batting to the conditions and actually ran between the wickets well, weren't trying to hit booming drives or anything. We're trying to work the ball around and sweep and things like that. And that's what you need to do in these conditions. I just think booming drives that Crawley is sort of famous for is not going to work. So, well, we'll see. He'll probably get 150 in the second match, but I somehow doubt it.
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? They've gone to Crawley at the top of the order because Jamie Smith was playing there until relatively recently. I mean, he was the new man put up at the top of the order, and he batted there last year, and it came off occasionally. There was a game at the Oval against the West Indies where he just smashed it here, there, and everywhere. And of course, we know he's capable of doing that, but it didn't really work for him. And of course, he had a very difficult time in Australia, and it would be interesting to see to what extent he keeps his place in any of the England teams, because he obviously lost his place in the one-day side, and whether he keeps his place in the Test side when it comes around to next summer. And that's a long way off. So they've taken Smith out. They've think Crawley's got the ability to play aggressively at the top of the order. And the next World Cup, of course, this is what I mean. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because in a way, you say, what's the point of this one-day international series, this 3-match series in Sri Lanka? Because it has no sort of immediate context. Because actually, the context is going into the 20 World Cup. So England are playing 3 T20 matches after this series, but it's about reciprocal agreements, of course. And Sri Lanka are coming back to England in September to play, so England have to play there. So they want Sri Lanka to come and play in England because you need to put fixtures on to make money and for all the various grounds. So that's kind of the reason. But that's the context. Even though it doesn't really seem to have much real point. We're always looking ahead to World Cups in cricket, but the next one is right around the corner, and it's the T20 World Cup. In a way, you think it'd be much better to actually play 6 T20 internationals rather than 3 and 3 here. But you've got to play these one-dayers, haven't you? And there is another World Cup in 2027 in South Africa. So, which goes back to my point about Crawley. Actually, in South Africa, as an opener, is he more likely to be successful than in Sri Lanka on slower pitches? South Africa, the ball tends to bounce a bit more, not everywhere, but there is more pace and bounce in South Africa, and it will be a tournament more dominated, or you will come up against far more pace than you will spin.
Yeah, fair point. So, he could be the right person to pick in the future, but I don't know. I've watched enough of him in one-day cricket to think that I don't think he's right. The trouble is, he hasn't really got an in-between game. He's got a booming drive and a pull, and I know he can pretty well sweep the spinners, but what is needed as well is an adaptability and an ability to work the ball around. It's what makes sometimes Ben Stokes rather restricted in white ball cricket. He can't work the ball around very well because he's got very sort of hard wrists, and you need touch players. That you don't just need bludgeoners in white ball. T20 maybe, but in 50 over cricket, it is a longer game now. And, the ball will get a bit older. You will need some dexterous skills. I mean, actually, it was interesting watching Rayan Ahmed at the end there, who produced quite a cameo to a 27, and he was using his wrist to slice the ball into odd areas. I don't know. I just feel that Crawley doesn't quite have the right mix of skills for white ball, really, at the top level. I mean, he can do it at the 100 and probably for his county, but I just feel at this level, you need a bit more versatility, but we'll see.
Well, he's only played 31 list A games, which isn't actually that many, is it? When you think of, how many did you play in your career? You played stacks and stacks, didn't you? Stacks of list A cricket. He's only played 31, and his average is 33. He's made 100 in white ball cricket. And 650, his average of 33.64, which is actually sort of quite close to his first class and test average, and just a bit above his T20 average as well. So kind of that's where he is. It's another defeat for England. I mean, the batting does, in theory, look quite strong, doesn't it? I mean, they bat all the way down. So you did have players like Rayan Ahmed coming in the lower order and Overton who were able to thump it around. I mean, England wanted to bat first. Harry Brook said that at the toss. They wanted to bat first, get a score on the board, and then try to squeeze. But England they were in the game. They did have their chance to win the game. And I suppose what it comes down to is if you do get in, e.g. Root and Duckett, you've got to go on and make 100. Someone's got to go on and make 100, a really big score to win the game. It's actually 60s don't win the game in the subcontinent because it was quite difficult to start. So once they were out in quick succession, it's quite difficult for the next batters like Brook, for example, to start and Bethel to start. And then the pressure just builds and builds and builds. And we've seen it so many times before. So it was a collapse of a certain nature for England. Mind you, I've seen far worse collapses from England in subcontinental conditions than this one. So, I mean, in a way, they got a bit close today, but it was no surprise that they lost. Sri Lanka, home conditions, England only just got there, probably was going to be a challenge. But I mean, the pressure's on, isn't it, to actually produce some victories in white ball cricket, not least because of the situation, I suppose, surrounding the coach.
So we just stop there. That's
and then we'll go on to talk about that and Brook and Bangladesh afterwards. Yeah, okay. Just broaden it out a little bit and then say goodnight, I think.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Okay. So VPN. Yeah, I'll just sort of do a little introduction then.
Okay.
Well, people know me as the analyst, and I look at quite a lot of different sites in my research for cricket, stats and information and so on. And I've discovered over the last couple of years that what I thought was my online privacy isn't very private. But with NordVPN, you can actually ensure your privacy in all sorts of levels, in all sorts of fields. And just one click is a real game changer with NordVPN.com. You find that as well, don't you?
I, not long ago, renewed my subscription, 2-year subscription to NordVPN. My NordVPN is on at the moment as I speak to you from Southeast Asia, Yoz, and it gives you sense of security, for example, when you're banking, and also puts you back into your UK websites as well, so that you can go into all your familiar accounts. There are all sorts of ways that you can use it, and I would thoroughly recommend it.
Now, there's a guarantee if you take out our 2-year plan on nordvpn.com/AIC. That stands for Analyst Inside Cricket. nordvpn.com/AIC. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee if you sign up to our 2-year plan. So check it out, nordvpn.com/AIC. So a defeat for Harry Brook in his next outing as England's one-day international captain. And it was preceded by a declaration from Brook himself in the sort of pre-match press conferences, admitting and apologising for his behaviour in New Zealand before one of the one-day internationals over there, before the Ashes. It's received quite a lot of publicity. I just want to actually quote what he said here, what he said happened before an ODI in New Zealand. He said, "We went out for a couple of drinks. Then I took it upon myself to go out for a few more. I was on my own there. I wouldn't say I was absolutely leathered. I'd had one too many." Now, the way he put it, "I wouldn't say I was absolutely leathered," is almost like saying, so it wasn't too bad then. I mean, I just think it's appalling, personally. And I know he owned up to it himself, to the management, before they took action, and England kept it quiet. But I think he was very lucky to survive as England captain, as England ODI captain, with that behaviour. And I just think that behaviour is a complete no-no. I think it's appalling that a one-day captain, or in fact any one-day player for England, any England player, to behave like that, to go out the night before an ODI and get basically pissed. We're not saying absolutely plastered, but certainly had a few drinks. I just think it's an absolute abomination.
Yeah, well, this story was breaking. Well, we knew it was going to happen, actually, while we were recording our end of tour podcast in Sydney. I can remember that there were lots of rumours flying around that there was going to be the Harry Brook story breaking sometime in the next hour or two or few hours. And then, obviously, we got the full details of what happened, or at least most of them anyway. There might be one or two other things that haven't quite come out yet, but basically we've got the essential story, and it does seem remarkable, doesn't it, that as the leader of the team, that is something you would do on the night before the game. I mean, you're the leader. You're supposed to be sort of setting the standards for the team. It was the game in Wellington. It was the third match in that one-day series, a game which England actually lost. It was quite a tight game. They actually got close to winning it. Yeah. So in your opinion, yours, is he lucky to have survived as captain? Do you think he should have been removed as captain?
I would have removed him as captain. I would have, if I'd have been a Rob Key and he had come up and said that. I was pissed last night. I had an altercation with the bouncer. I'm very sorry. I don't know how you can live on as captain. I don't know how you can sort of live with yourself, with the team, but by behaving like that. I just think I would have said, sorry, Harry, that's beyond the pale. You're gone. I like Harry Brook a lot, by the way. I mean, I haven't got a personal vendetta against him. Many of the things he's done have been wonderful, not just on the field, but that, I'm afraid, is intolerable.
Yeah, it does seem bizarre that. I mean, look, I suppose, is everyone deserving of one chance? You say you make, or one mistake, you
can
make
have
one mistake
and then come back and captain again later, can't you?
Yeah, well, that's what they could have done. Anyway, the results under Harry Brook's captaincy have not been great. Under Brendan McCullum as one-day coach, they've not been great as well. I think we're constantly told there's a lot of talent, white ball talent in England. It feels to me as if there's quite a lot of white ball talent in the batting, not so much in the bowling, which is one of their problems. I thought, today I thought Sri Lanka's kind of like they knew they got enough runs, 270. That felt like a winning score. They knew the stats at the Premadasa Stadium, which is that if you get 270, you're pretty likely to win. I think only one team has scored more than 270 to win a game at that stadium on that ground. Yeah, England weren't able to hold them, so I don't know whether there's just that focus on the bowling. There's obviously good efforts in bowling today, Rashid and also Liam Dawson. Where are we with the England sort of coaching structure? I mean, it looks as if Rob Key is going to keep his job as managing director, sort of the overall boss. Brendan McCullum, I think, is the jury still out there? I suppose it depends how much he is prepared to adapt after what happened in the Ashes and how successful they are as well. I mean, if they were to, get shellacked, say in the 6 white ball games in Sri Lanka and then flunk in the T20 World Cup as well, does that increase the pressure? I mean, I do sense that there's a lot of bemusement out there from England supporters about him staying on as England coach. But I mean, the other side of it is something we've discussed on this podcast before, isn't it? That actually England have, they did improve under Brendan McCullum. They had a really sort of good start, didn't they? And they have tailed off since. And the other thing as well is that England always lose in Australia, or invariably lose in Australia. And so there's always that massive reaction to it. But they did set themselves up for it and say, look, this is what we're all planning towards. This is the series of our lives. This is what we're geared towards. And they kind of flunked it against an Australian side that was not necessarily there for the taking, but didn't have a few of its major players available for some of the games, and in case of Josh Hazlewood, all of the games. So where are we, do you think, with Brendan McCullum?
I really like Brendan McCullum as a person, and his philosophy on the game in the main, I think, is great. Sort of playing in an abandoned way and playing in a fearless way and all that. But I think it doesn't work with inexperienced players so much as it would with experienced players, because too many players have lived in a bubble. They're largely naive. They hadn't been to Australia, quite a few of them. They were hit with this sort of juggernaut of Australian cricket, and they just couldn't cope with it. But McCullum's philosophy on the game, taking on, pressure and trying to put pressure back on and all that, I like that. But I think that it's very difficult for somebody to coach all 3 formats at the moment, in the way the game is structured, in the scheduling that the team has, the different personnel, the different captains. I think it's really hard for one person to be coach. I think McCullum is better suited, really, to coaching one-day cricket. And I just think Test cricket needs a bit more detail and a bit more planning and a bit more kind of meticulousness and, that sort of forensic nature that a sort of Andy Flower or somebody brings to it. And
do you think white ball cricket demands that as well? Modern
because you've got
cricket?
It does, but I don't think it's quite so thinking out of the box. There's statistics, there's analysts knocking around who can work on the matchups and pitch conditions and pass scores and things like that. So you can use data much more effectively, I think, in white ball cricket. In red ball cricket, it's more about detail and skill and being smart, actually, and thinking your way through situations, and that requires quite a deep thinking coach, I think. Duncan Fletcher was brilliant, for instance, at just the detail of playing spin, or thinking through a situation, or finding the solution to reverse swing, or encouraging his bowlers to bowl reverse swing at certain times, and making sure the ball was in the right state for it. And by the way, England, I see, have employed Troy Cooley, the Australian, as the new bowling coach, who of course was coach in the 2005 Ashes and was very instrumental in how England used reverse. A good man, Troy Cooley, had a lot of influence, good and bad, on Jimmy Anderson, actually. Sort of tinkered with his run up a bit, which was bad, but also helped him with swing and control and so on. So it's a long-winded answer, but I just think it's so difficult for a coach to coach all three formats. And if McCullum can find some success with this one-day side in the next 2 months, I'd probably keep him on for that. But I think they probably do need somebody else to coach Test cricket.
Well, I think it all needs detail. I think it needs for real sort of analytical approach for all three formats. I need a real attention to detail. Top level international sport is changing. I think that it absolutely requires that. I think perhaps the mistake was to give him the white ball job. I mean, that, in a way, that wasn't the original plan, was it? It was to be the red ball coach. Matthew Mott was in situ. That didn't seem to work. Then Brendan McCullum's taken over. That's not worked as well. So is that about the coach? Is it really about the quality of the players that England have?
Usually, isn't it? In the end, it
yeah,
is.
it is. Yeah,
yeah. And
so
we people say they've got lots of white ball talent in the English team. Well, I don't really see it. I can see one or two. Obviously, there's standouts. I mean, Duckett, to me, he's a good white ball cricketer. He's excellent. Obviously, Joe Root, who was overlooked for a while. Butler, brilliant. Rashid.
Brook.
Yeah, Brook. Yeah, I suppose Brook. Yeah, I mean, I was sort of slightly crossing my fingers when Brook is batting for England at the moment. But yeah, I mean, super talent, obviously. And if Archer's fit, then he would be there as well. But that it remains to be seen whether the likes of Bethel and others can really, they are very inexperienced.
Yeah. I think to me, it does come back to this point. I think it's kind of true of the Test team as well. Is who are you going to throw the ball to get me two quick wickets? It's that, or who's going to make those incisions with the new ball, set the tone for the day. This is Test cricket and also white ball cricket as well. They have got Adil Rashid, a clever bowler. And I look at England's white ball side, and I just don't see that real quality in the bowling. I don't think they've got a team that can be successful with that bowling attack. Personally, I think they've got the batting, but but you need both. You can't just hope that the batting is going to dig you out the whole time. And of course, sometimes the batting fails because they go very hard or whatever. And they, it failed badly in New Zealand, didn't it? Albeit in early season conditions there, where the ball, nipped around and their approach was found wanting, and they really struggled there. So for me, I just don't see that sort of sustained quality of the bowling that you need to be really successful. Until they can sort that out, then they probably are going to continue to struggle. They'll win the odd game, and they have had matches where they've hammered the opposition. I mean, they hammered Australia at Lords September before last. They absolutely hammered South Africa, who just won in Australia and just beaten them in England as well in the series. But then the last game, they absolutely annihilated them by 340 runs. It was the biggest ever thrashing in a one-day international. So, occasionally it will happen for them because they do have that quality in batting. But I do kind of.
They're absolutely, red hot, aren't they? But
yeah, but
they're cold or lukewarm.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen that much. It's going to happen from time to time, but you can't rely on that. You need that consistency. You need that all-round quality, and I think that's what they're really striving for. So I'll be fascinated to see how they get on in these matches in Sri Lanka, and when the T20 World Cup comes around, do they have the quality of bowling to win matches in subcontinental conditions? So that's the challenge. We should finish, Jos, just by talking about one other thing, and that is related to the T20 World Cup. To be resolved today, but it doesn't seem to have been, well, not decisively resolved anyway. There's the whole issue of whether Bangladesh are going to take part in the tournament at all, or whether their decision or their view that they're not going to play in India is going to exclude them. The ICC is saying, you're not a special case. It's not like the India-Pakistan situation. It's more like situations we've had in the past. England not going to Zimbabwe in 2003. West Indies and Australia not going to Sri Lanka in 1996 World Cup. The ICC is saying it's more akin to that rather than the India-Pakistan situation. Bangladesh saying, actually, no, it's a bit like the India-Pakistan situation. They should be allowed to play their matches in Sri Lanka. It all goes back to Mustafiza being withdrawn from the Kolkata Knight Riders team. The Indian authorities saying, no, he's not going to play in the IPL. And Bangladesh said, well, if you can't sort of guarantee him his place in the IPL, then we don't feel safe coming to India, not just our team, but our supporters and our journalists as well. Yet to be resolved. And if Bangladesh, decide not to go to India, then it looks as if Scotland will be called up as a late replacement. But it does look as though Bangladesh are, pretty firm on this. That they are not going to play in India. Therefore, it seems ruling themselves out of playing in the World Cup, which is a sad situation, isn't it? You feel Bangladesh is a cricketing nation, should be making greater strides than they have, and that, on their day, they can be a handful. We've seen them beat England from time to time in quite dramatic and exciting circumstances.
There's deep inequality, double standards, hypocrisy, call it what you like. I mean, there's so much going on here that's poor. And I have looked at the Mustafiza situation as well. And the Indians, I'm afraid to say, are sort of performing a kind of ethnic cleansing with the IPL, because the Pakistanis aren't allowed to play in the IPL either. And now they block the only Bangladeshi player from playing in the IPL. And meanwhile, we've got this other sort of standoff with Bangladesh saying, well, we don't want to come to India to play. We want to play in Sri Lanka and play our matches in Sri Lanka. And India were allowed to play wherever they liked in the Champions Trophy a while ago, weren't they? And they ended up playing in Dubai. The ICC backed down on that one. I mean, it's appalling, and it's sad for the game that someone can't take control of this. And India seem to have all the power. I mean, I get regular text messages from Michael Holding, the former great West Indies fast bowler, who basically sends me all these articles about this kind of thing. And, he's absolutely apoplectic about it and sort of relieved that he's now not involved with the organisation, the ICC, who tend to employ all the commentators for the main ICC events. And they are the people who have the ultimate decision here. And they flunked it, really, haven't they? It seems quite sad that Bangladesh aren't allowed. I mean, I suppose the other way of looking at it briefly is just teams should just play where they're told to play, shouldn't they? But I guess that's pie in the sky these days.
Yeah, well, it's so much political interference. What the ICC are saying is that, and what the Indian authorities are saying, is it's perfectly safe for Bangladesh to come and play in India. A bit like the ICC was saying it was perfectly safe for England to go to Zimbabwe in 2003, and it was perfectly safe for Australia and West Indies to go to Sri Lanka in 1996. Those three teams chose not to, and they were penalised as a result. Well, they lost their World Cup points, but Bangladesh here could lose their World Cup place. I need to think more about it and to learn more about it, decide who's in the right. Are Bangladesh under threat going to India? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like it's suddenly sort of reared its head, this one, isn't it? They've played there before, and they played there quite recently as well. So,
and they often play in Calcutta, where they have a huge support because Calcutta is largely Bengali, and they side often with Bangladesh instead of India when they're watching a game at Eden Gardens. So,
but it is.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it is the Mustafiza thing that's really got them going, and his exclusion from the IPL. It's really caused a lot of anger and mistrust. Still to be decided, but it looks at this point as though the beneficiaries might well be Scotland, and they may well get a place in the T20 World Cup. And it seems barely a World Cup without any political controversy these days. I mean, the Champions Trophy was a horrible Horlicks of a competition because of the India-Pakistan thing. Of course, that's still resonating now, isn't it? Because the T20 World Cup that's coming up, the India-Pakistan match, which of course has to take place, an ICC tournament, is going to be played in Sri Lanka. And if those two teams meet in the final, they get through to the final, then that game will have to be played in Sri Lanka as well, not in India, who are the kind of, I suppose, the main hosts, and they're staging more of the games. Yeah, it's not great, is it? Perhaps that's why everyone's just playing franchise cricket now and get away from all the politics.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens with that. Just one other thing, just to finish, actually. I noticed the England team were wearing black armbands today in memory of both Norman Gifford, the former Warwickshire, Worcestershire and England left-arm spinner, and also David Collier, the former ECB chief exec. I knew both well, actually. Collier, a very fine man, fine administrator, also a very good hockey referee. But Norman Gifford, I did actually play against. I'm that old. And, we talked earlier about the lack of spinners in English cricket, or the lack of kind of really talented international quality spinners. Gifford was probably not the best spinner in England at all, although he did take over 2,000 wickets in his first-class career. But he was someone who mastered the art of flight and guile. He a bit like Rashid, actually, a bit like Adil Rashid. He bowled, if you attacked him, came down the wicket to him, his next ball would be even slower and loopier to try and encourage you to do it again. And he would sort of stand with his hands on his hips and go on then, I'll have another go on. And he also tried sometimes, he had quite a long run up, but sometimes he would turn after 2 paces and run in and try and bowl again to catch batsman out. He was quite a sort of canny operator, made the most of his ability. He didn't turn the ball much, but he made it, you feel as if it was actually spinning, and he was all over you with his personality. And a lovely man off the field, actually. He loved to smoke a pipe, and he was just great company, actually. But he was a really canny spin bowler. And those of you who like reading about cricket, to study his profile, because he was an interesting character, actually, and obviously be sorely missed. Aged 85, he died last week.
33 wickets in 15 tests for England, as you say, 2,068 first-class wickets at 23. He was actually the coach on my first ever overseas tour. I went on an England A tour in 92-3, and he was the coach. GIF. The thing I remember about him is his pipe, smoking his pipe. Yeah, he was a lovely man. You got the impression he just loved the game as well. He really loved the game.
As we all do, of course. And I want you to set up a game of cricket on the beach, please, and take a picture, okay? And just don't strain anything else in your little
I'm injured, Yoz.
In the sand.
I'm injured. I can't play cricket at the moment. I'm injured. I've got 3 injuries.
0, dear.
I need to come home for a holiday, Yoz. Listen, nice to speak to you. It's very late. Let's see how this one-day series, white ball series, progresses in Sri Lanka. Speak to you all soon. Thanks very much for listening. Goodbye for now.